Welcome to the League of Women Voters of the Ripon Area and Ripon College Center for the People and Politics Candidate Forum. We are delighted to have the candidates for the 14th Wisconsin State Senate District join us this evening. Thank you both for attending, and thank you for running for public office. It's not always easy. It's never easy, actually. This forum is unusual for us in that there is no audience. Questions were solicited beforehand via print and social media. More than 24 questions were submitted by Ripon College students, and then over and above that, the public. Thank you to those who submitted questions. The questions have been screened by League members to ensure questions may be answered by both candidates. Before we begin the program, I want to encourage everyone to vote. If you have not registered to do so, or if you need to request an absentee ballot, you may do so at https://myvote.wisconsin.gov/. It will also be available, that information is also available on the League of Women Voters area Facebook page. The link will be shown during live viewing as well as the taped replay. The site is tied to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and as such, you may use your driver's license number to register as a voter or as a means of photo identification for an absentee ballot. As the League of Women Voters begins its second century, we find ourselves adapting to the same social and medical challenges that we all face. We are running tonight with a skeleton crew. We thank Riley Eisnagel and his team for their dedication to bring you this information. This forum, while live, is being taped and will be replayed on the Ripon Cable YouTube channel, and it is live on the Ripon YouTube channel right now. We will also post the link on the League Facebook page as well as the website. Luke Dretsky of Ripon College is also streaming Facebook Live at facebook.com/RiponCollegeCPP. This session will provide the voters of the 14th Wisconsin State Senate District information on each of the candidates, allowing voters to make informed voting decisions. The candidates have drawn for position and will present in the order drawn. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening remarks, 2 minutes to answer each question, and closing remarks will be limited to 1 minute. The lead will change following opening remarks through closing remarks. We will begin with Joan Ballweg.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Thank you to the League and Ripon College, and good evening to all the electors and residents of the 14th Senate District. I've been living in Marquezan since 1976 as my husband and I bought an existing farm equipment dealership there. We raised our 3 children there, and I'm happy to say we now have 3 grandchildren. The locations of the dealership changed over the years. We're now in the town of Chester, just outside of Waupun, and also another location in the city of Beaver Dam. While there in Marquezan, of course, I was very active in our Chamber of Commerce, eventually ran and was elected to 2 terms on the city council and 3 terms, 6 years, as mayor of Marquezan. I also served on a local hospital board at Waupun. And since then, I did run for the state assembly I've served now for 8 terms. And some of the things that I'm most appreciative of and things that I welcome that I'd like to continue as a state senator, some of the bipartisan initiatives that I have brought forward. One of those has to do with my continued support for financial aid to make sure that young people have the opportunity to move forward in their post-secondary education, whether that be technical colleges or universities. Myself, along with several other colleagues, started a bipartisan Wisconsin Legislative Children's Caucus, which is intent on making sure that our colleagues are understanding of the importance of investment in early childhood and supporting families that have stress. And then the third thing, in a bipartisan way, continuing my work on mental health as the chairperson this past term of the Speaker's Task Force on Suicide Prevention.
Thank you, Joan. Joni.
My name is Joni Anderson, and I'm from Adams, Wisconsin. I moved there 27 years ago and became employed at what was then Farnham and which is now Freudenberg and OK. Farnham is an auto parts plant. During the time I worked there, I was not only an active union member, but I was a union officer. During the time that I was working there, we ended up doing concession bargaining, and later on, the members came to me looking for new leadership. I chose to run for president, and I have never looked back. I've served as steward, as a vice president. I took all the education and training my union gave to me on right to work, and I worked with the members to get them involved. Including all the new ones who had never been in a union and didn't know what it was about. And at that time, I went on to retire this spring so that I could run for state senate. I've been active in different statewide organizations such as Citizen Action and Our Wisconsin Revolution, and I'm currently a committee member for Wisconsin Voices for CD3 that has to do with nonpartisan redistricting. I believe that there are basic issues in this state that people need to have addressed, such as wages, health care, and of course the nonpartisan redistricting. It's fine.
Finished?
Yep.
Okey doke. You're going to start with the first question. And again, I'll remind both of you, if you need me to repeat these because they get kind of long, I will do that. According to a recent Marquette Law School poll, a majority of voters in the state are in favor of what is called fair maps. Will you commit to supporting the use of a nonpartisan agency or board to carry out the job of redistricting after the 2020 census? If so, why or why not?
I am definitely in favor of a nonpartisan redistricting forum. I believe that neither political party should be drawing those voting lines, and I will not only co-sponsor a bill, I will work to get it out of committee and on the floor to a public hearing if necessary to have it voted on. With the number of counties that have shown support and for nonpartisan redistricting, including in Senate 14, and there'll be a couple more that are on the ballot. Adams and Washera County both have referendums on the ballot in November 3rd.
Thank you. Joan?
Well, our state constitution says that the legislature should do redistricting based on population. As things have gone forward, case law talks about that the district should be compact and they should reflect communities of interest. I do believe that after 50 years, this may or may not be, this will not be a time when all parties are of the same party to do redistricting. So the legislature will come up with a bill. The governor will take a look at that and make his decision whether he wants to sign that into law or not. And if not, as most often happen, it will go to the courts for the final determination. In the last go-round for redistricting, it did happen that there was a Republican legislature and a Republican governor. There was one challenge to that map as it was passed. That was just two assembly districts in the southern part of Milwaukee, and that was a minor change, and so redistricting went forward from there. So I do believe that the commission that the governor is putting together has the capability of putting together a suggestion that can go to the legislature, go through the committee process for consideration. If that is something that the committee would like to do or use part of that. But of course, with the announcement of that commission today, we see that there is no way to possibly do a nonpartisan commission. Some of these individuals that have been named to the commission were signers of the recall. There was no input from Republicans or the legislature as to the members of that commission.
Thank you, Joan. This next question will begin with you. The tax on one Juul pod, the most popular e-cigarette among teens, is 3.5 cents, while the tax on a package of cigarettes is $2.52. Both contain the same amount of nicotine, a highly addictive substance that is known to hamper brain development in teens. What are some specific actions the legislature can take to protect our youth from becoming addicted to nicotine and create equity between tobacco retailers and those who sell e-cigarettes?
So this is an emerging science, of course, in trying to make that fair determination. This is something that I think the legislature should look at, and we should be increasing the tax on the Juul products. I was an advocate over the last several years, and we finally passed into law something in Wisconsin to make sure that those products are behind the counter, and so they're not as accessible to young people. I was visiting with area members of the Tobacco Coalition today, as a matter of fact, discussing this and what has happened with the federal regulation regarding age 21. And I think that they made a good point in that we should try to move forward with some kind of state legislation that puts some teeth in that ability for local law enforcement to move forward in making sure that those that are under 21 don't have the access to those nicotine products, whether they be cigarettes or Juul products. Thank you. Joni?
I had a little discussion with some of the individuals that work with the non-tobacco part of the community services program this past week, and one of their issues was these types of cigarettes or nicotine. They were concerned not only with the amount of tax that was being charged on them compared to regular cigarettes, but they were also concerned with the fact that they've lost a lot of funding. And so they no longer have the ability to run the educational programs and the training programs that are necessary in the schools. So that was their big concern, funding.
Okay, thank you. You were going to start with this next question. Wisconsin is among the top 10 states in the nation for nitrate contamination, both in municipal water systems and private wells. What is your view on water contamination from agriculture, as well as the use of pesticides by agriculture, golf courses, and yard weed control?
We need our groundwater protections back that have been taken away over the last few years. CAFOs need to be responsible along with other corporations so that they clean up their messes rather than the people of the state. I myself, I have to get my wells and my septics tested every 3 years. So should these corporations and the CAFOs. They shouldn't be just left to put their mess where they want to and leave it for us to clean up.
Thank you. Joan?
Well, certainly the concern with nitrates is and pesticides and phosphorus has been an emerging issue that's been brought to light over the last several years. When you talk about the CAFOs or the large animal management organizations, they are highly permitted by the Department of Natural Resources, and that has been strengthened over the last some years. We have smaller animal farms that don't have the same regulations. So we need to try to moderate that. Everyone does have those regulation. I was one of those that voted for a bill some years ago that reduced the amount of phosphorus that is in lawn fertilizer, and that's why you don't see that anymore at your lawn and garden store or Ace Hardware unless you're starting a new lawn. So we need to reduce that type of thing. Most of our municipalities are very aware of this. They're taking a closer look at things. That's why you're asked not to put your leaf clippings and to keep your yard waste and leaves out of the gutters when it comes to fall, so they can be picked up and disposed of properly so that they don't get into our system. And then, of course, we had a very robust water quality task force that went on this past year, hoping that bills that we pass in the Assembly will be brought up and passed in the Senate, strengthening the work that our conservation departments do, providing more funding for some of those studies.
Thank you. Your turn. What is your view on agricultural deep well drilling in the western part of your district? Do you agree with the actions of the current Attorney General, which has allowed the DNR to consider the cumulative effects of high-capacity wells on the water table when permitting new wells?
Well, certainly high-capacity wells is something that we use every place. Our communities wouldn't have community wells, and you wouldn't have city water without high-capacity wells. Manufacturing is a great user of high-capacity wells, and agriculture is actually a lesser use of high-capacity wells. We need that to provide water for our animals, for high-quality crops. I don't think you'd like the green beans that didn't get adequately rain and water on them. Now, what the Attorney General did in reversing this, I think, is something that the legislature and the Department of Natural Resources has struggled with, how to actually use community or cumulative impact when it comes to permitting. A few years ago, when Attorney General Schimmel did allow that to go forward, the DNR was actually sitting on permits because they didn't know what to do with them. So what I think we need to do as we move forward with this is have the DNR make sure that they are working on administrative rules that are responsive and reflective of the communities that are stakeholders, whether you're on a city water system, you're a manufacturer and work at one of those manufacturers, or you are providing high-quality food products for the public.
Thank you. Joni?
There's numerous communities in the state and in Senate 14 that don't have clean water to drink in their communities. They don't have it there because of the protections have been taken away. And these high-capacity wells, although they service a lot of people and a lot of big corporations, and they need to be responsible for what they put in by keeping the water clean. They need to be responsible. And I'm not real familiar with the bill that Attorney General passed and took away, but I know that there's a lot of complaints with the way the water is in this state. So.
Okay, and we're going to start with you on this next one. What are key initiatives that you hope to enhance or start new that address health disparities, specifically when it comes to rural areas with high poverty? Is the solution to dwindling healthcare facilities and practitioners in rural communities something that needs to be addressed by the public or private sector?
Healthcare has become a huge issue in this state, and we need our Medicaid dollars back in this state so that they can provide insurance and healthcare coverage for a lot of different people that do not have it. We need healthcare that isn't connected to employment, and rural areas need doctors. They need healthcare professionals, and you have places like Gunderson that's supposed to be a nonprofit corporation hospital, and they make millions of dollars. They profit millions of dollars. And they're buying up a lot of these rural hospitals. But these rural hospitals have a lot of problems keeping doctors. And I firmly believe that if we had a single-payer health care plan in this country, these health care facilities would be better off.
Thank you. Joan?
Thank you. So I've been a major advocate for critical access care hospitals in our rural communities on both the federal and the state level, because we do need to have quality access to emergency care throughout all our communities. Now, I think one of the things that we've seen through the COVID pandemic, when hospitals curtailed the access for some of our preventative cares and some of our normal type of situations, knee replacements, so on, we saw that we could maybe do more when it comes to telemedicine, whether that be on a behavioral health side or a medical side. So I think that is going to be something that, although we believe that that was always a good thing, that we know that it's going to be needed even more. But that doesn't mean that we're going to be able to get rid of or continue to decrease the number of clinics and hospitals and access in our rural areas. So we have a shortage of people that are going into those professions. We did before the pandemic, we still do now. There is questions regarding making sure that people want to live in our rural areas and making sure that they feel that they are comfortable moving forward. Our counties, of course, provide a lot of basic needs through our county health departments, and I continue to support them as they move forward also.
Thank you. We'll start with this one. Each of you has been a major proponent of education and have been supported by education-related groups. What can you say about the importance of education, especially in the 14th?
So I think we have a good educational system on a K-12 basis. We are lacking, as most of the state, when it comes to early childhood education. That's something that I'm very passionate about, that we can try to make sure that supporting some of the initiatives that we have in the state and supports for our early childhood educators, so that those daycares can have better handle and better help to make sure that kids are ready to go to school. On the higher education end of things, I've been a big supporter of increased financial aid for individuals. And I think one of the things that we have a benefit here and we would like to continue to enhance is some of the school to work programs, so that we do have technical education. And technical education just isn't for students that want to learn to build houses. Technical education helps individuals who maybe want to be architects and designers and planners, so that they have a better understanding of what's going into the process of development. So we as a whole are actually short a lot of workers in many, many areas, including educators, that I would hope that people see the value in, as a former teacher myself, the value in making good decisions to help young people, whether they're at a elementary age or a post-secondary age, do the best they can do and achieve the most they can.
Thank you. Joni?
I think that we need to put more funding into our public school system overall. The school funding has not been there for there's a good number of years. Our teachers need to be paid better, and they need to be able to go into their classrooms and feel like they're safe. With the COVID now, many of them had to go back to school. Well, they petitioned the governor's office for funding for safety. So that they could, the teachers and the students could feel safe. We need broadband for the students, because one of the things we don't want is students to be left behind because of this COVID, and that could very easily happen. You know, public schools are the schools that provide training and supportive services for the future of our communities, for the future of our state. And without the funding and with schools constantly having to close down, because we just lost one in Adams County here 2 years ago, the third elementary school. Students also need to be able to go to college, and they need to do it without having thousands and thousands and thousands of debt for school, to go to school. So that's the way it is, funding.
Okay, thank you. This next question you already kind of partially addressed. The lack of broadband access in rural communities has been identified for years as a critical need. Since many Wisconsin schools are resuming virtually, how can the government help minimize the disparity in I can't even say it, technology access while still keeping people safe? If elected, would you address this need? Do you have a plan for enhanced broadband in rural areas?
We need money for public schools, and by providing the money for public schools, it can be divested into broadband so that we can provide these services to the students and to the teachers. Without the funding, you won't be able to do it. And that's, if we want our students to stay in this state, to be proud of it, and our teachers to teach in the schools and be proud that they're working in Wisconsin as a teacher, then we need to show that we have their support, or they have their support from us. So.
Thank you. Joan?
So there has been both federal and state incentives for increasing broadband. One of the better things that I think we did in the last couple of years is reinforcing rural expansion of broadband, not just putting some of those incentive dollars into companies that will enhance areas that already have broadband. We have some great rural partners like the Marquette Oxford Telephone Cooperative that have things all over Adams County and into Marquette County and are doing a great job providing that service. So we need to continue to enhance those incentives to push that out further. Wisconsin is behind compared to some states when it comes to that, but of course Wisconsin is much more rural and have a broader base of our populace. We aren't as centrally located in some of the larger cities like Minnesota is and Illinois and so on. So yes, we do need to continue to enhance that. I think the issue we've had during the COVID pandemic has brought that forward even more, with so many more people that want to work from home, with our young people having to go to school virtually. How many times are individual families having to do 2 and 3 and 4 sessions at one time because everybody is working or everyone is going to school? So yes, that is an imperative that we continue working on expanding broadband.
Thank you. This one's for you. Should marijuana for medical purposes be legalized in Wisconsin? Why or why not?
I'm not ready to legalize medical marijuana at this point, but I think we probably ought to take a look at it based on something that we did over the last couple of years to try to bring into medical use CBD oil, Now you see it many places. It still needs to probably have some regulation and oversight to make sure that the products people are getting are correct. But what I would hope to do over the next session is to work with healthcare providers to find out what are the situations where we would most likely find relief for their patients when it comes to medical marijuana. I've signed on to letters to the federal government to ask that research be done regarding this particular area so that we can get it beyond the schedule of drug that prohibits a lot of this work being done. So I think it's time to take a look, work with the medical professionals and find out where medical marijuana could be used most successfully. I know that in a speech I heard from a sheriff from Colorado, he hesitated to tell. He told us that we should hesitate just to go full forward without having planning when it comes to legalizing of medical or recreational marijuana, because the situation that they've been in is that it was uncontrolled, and he really advised that we take small steps forward in taking a look at this situation.
Thank you. Joni?
I think it's time that we legalize medical and recreational marijuana. People need to be able to control their pain without having to buy expensive opiate drugs and possibly even become addicted to them. Some people never, when they have to buy the opiate drugs for painkilling, they just never are able to have control of their pain. And by legalizing medicinal marijuana, whether it be for seizures, whether it be for cancer, or whether it be for some other type of pain, like through MS, we need to provide this route for the people. So states like Illinois and Michigan already have it, and they're reaping the benefits. They're reaping the tax benefits. People go across the state lines to buy these drugs. Why should we be giving the tax money to these states? We should be utilizing it right here in Wisconsin.
Thank you. Joni? Should taxpayer funds be set aside for public schools be diverted to schools via vouchers? If so, why or why not? And would you support and advocate putting the cost of voucher schools on the yearly property tax bills when they are sent out? What is your position on school vouchers being paid to private institutions with public money?
I'm absolutely against it. Property taxes should be going into the public schools or other public services, not private voucher schools. They should no longer, if people want to send their kids to voucher schools, so be it. Let them pay for it.
Okay. Joan?
Well, our property taxes aren't paying for the vouchers. It's our general fund taxes that are paying for vouchers. And after all, aren't we educating children? We're giving the parents an opportunity to make a choice as to what type of school those students go to. And in the majority of cases, those vouchers cost far less than the subsidies that go to our public schools. As I said before, there's no property tax dollars that are going into vouchers. Now, that leads into the second part of the question that said, should there be a line on your property taxes that talks about vouchers? Your property taxes are telling you how much money you're spending and how much your property is worth based on sending money to your technical colleges, your school, your municipality, your county, and so on. So there's no relationship to any kind of line item that could possibly be on your property taxes regarding vouchers. Certainly, there is information that is available about how much is the state is putting into public schools versus school choice schools, and that's the case. It is a choice, and that we're giving the opportunity for parents, in most cases who are lower income, to have the opportunity to send their kids to a alternative school to their public school.
Okey doke, you get this one. Do you agree with the practice of calling extraordinary sessions for the legislature? If so, why or why not? Do you agree with the practice of adjourning an extraordinary session of the legislature after less than a minute when the governor has requested the session?
So an extraordinary session, the legislature sets up its own calendar. So essentially, it's telling the public when and when not you're going to be in session and be available for standard practice bills. The extraordinary session, of course, is, I think, a very viable opportunity for the legislature to take a look at special needs or special things that might come up that is outside the scheduled calendar to address something in particular. The special session that the governor called earlier this year, unfortunately, other special sessions have been done cooperatively between the governor and the legislature, so that either the topic that was being discussed or the bills that were being brought forward were something that was a partnership in working on them together, such as we saw at the end of the 17-18 session, when we did a special session that the governor called on school safety. And because that the legislature and the governor's office and other stakeholders came together to put together a package of bills that was very successfully went forward, over $100 million was put into those packages. An Office of School Safety was stood up at the Department of Justice, and it was very successful and moved forward, and schools around the state took advantage of the grants to do some things for school safety. So it has to do with the cooperation between the governor's office and the legislature, how successful a special session would be.
Thank you. Joni?
First off, I understand that the legislature can come in and bring a session to order, and then it can be adjourned just as quickly, and that's in the Constitution. Well, I don't think that this is correct. I think that when the legislature does do this, they're showing a great disrespect for working with the governor, and that they should come together and work together a little more cooperatively than to just absolutely refuse to come in, to use that part of their ruling to just actually not meet and show their disrespect and contempt for the people of this state.
Thank you. So you're gonna take this one. What do you see as the biggest issue facing legislatures in Wisconsin, and how would you address it?
The biggest issue facing legislatures? I think that's a pretty broad question.
It is.
The legislatures have a lot of big issues that they need to deal with, and some of these issues are not being dealt with in the state. We have the voting issues. We have issues where our governors and our attorney general have been attacked by reducing their I'm trying to think of a good way to put this, reducing their ability to do their job just simply because certain parties weren't in power. We need this stopped. We need the legislatures and the governor, and we need them all working together to solve the problems that we have in this state, the wages, the health care, the nonpartisan redistricting, the roads, the school funding. We need all that addressed, and it can't be done if people are not working together.
Thank you. Joan?
Well, the number one thing that the legislature does every biennium is the state budget. That is something that not only funds our schools, our roads, our communities, our counties that are working on child protective services and health care and everything else. So that's the number one thing that we do as a legislature. Now, this coming year, we are going to be impacted with less revenue in both the general fund and the transportation fund because of the results of COVID-19 and our economy being shut down and slowed down for many number of months. So that's the thing we're going to have to take a look at and take another closer look at our priorities. Our economy was doing great, our unemployment was low, and now we have to take a look at how are we going to support those jobs and interests that have had to struggle. If you were in a tourism industry that had to do with outdoors, you had a great year. If you had to do one that was indoors, not such a good year. If you were in a manufacturing community or a manufacturer, you might have been impacted by some of the supply chain issues and those kinds of things. So, and then of course, with the CARES Act money that the governor has that been used appropriately to help our schools and our healthcare services? So the budget is the number one thing that we hope to hear from our constituents and what the priorities should be coming up in 2021.
Thank you. Joan, our farmers have been experiencing challenges for many years. How will you support our farmers, Wisconsin agriculture, and ensure that farms do not continue to go out of business?
Well, I think the key word there when you talk about farms is they are businesses. So there has been a lot of consolidation when it comes to farms, when it comes to every business. We know that there aren't as many grocery stores in our towns as there used to be. A lot of things have had to consolidate, including our school districts when it comes to their school buildings. One of the things that I've done we focused on in our suicide prevention task force this year was the stress that comes to farmers because they can't control, of course, the markets, they can't control the weather. We have had great success in Wisconsin in trying to encourage that through our prevention work, encourage that they use the farm center to reach out to make sure that they are understanding and doing appropriate planning. One of the bills that we passed this year was providing incentives for individuals going to Wisconsin technical colleges so that they can do business planning. Farming is a lifestyle, but as with anyone in a family, we need to be responsible to our family and those we're taking care of. And so we want to make sure that farmers, just like everyone else, is making sure that they have all the information available so they can make the best decisions moving forward, whether they need to consolidate or they need to move on from the farmstead that they're currently on and the work that they've been doing.
Thank you. Joni?
Get big or get out. This is what our dairy farmers have been told by the federal government, and a lot of the money that has been given to the farming industry, some of it goes to the capos, some of it goes to the cheese markets, very little of it goes down to our dairy farmers. And they need fair pricing, they need fair markets, and they need them to be local too, so that they can provide the services that we need. I grew up on a small dairy farm. I know what it's like to struggle. I saw my parents have to go to work. But these dairy farmers need support from the state and from the federal government, and they need it at the small family farm level.
Okay, thank you. Next one you begin with. Municipal governments continue to feel financial strain, especially with COVID. What strategies do you have for helping them alleviate their financial burdens? How would you address the revenue shortfall of what is needed to repair our roads and other aging infrastructure?
Can you repeat?
Sure. Municipal governments continue to feel financial strain. That's even before COVID-19. With COVID-19, it's worse. What strategies do you have for helping them alleviate their financial burdens? How would you address the revenue shortfall of what is needed to repair our roads and other aging infrastructure?
There's several ways that can be addressed. One of them is, and this is a subject that hasn't been touched on yet, is that we can quit building prisons and allowing the prison system to grow and even encourage possibly a couple more juvenile centers. There's a lot of tax money. When we're known as the highest state in the country for people in prisons, this is something that we can turn around and we can use it more for the community, whether it's for roads, whether it's for our schools, whether it's for community services, but we can use the tax money differently. We can also fix our roads once and fix them right the first time rather than mend them year after year after year. And we need to remember that we are a rural state. Most of Wisconsin does not have or need the fancy turnarounds, the roundabouts, the overpasses. All we need is our roads fixed so that we can drive on them so that we don't wreck our cars or get in accidents. And I have yet to see a bill for a roundabout that shows that it was cheaper than a stop sign.
Hey, Joan?
Well, the first part of your question regarding municipal governments, I know that many of you that are out there will tell me that you think your property taxes are too high. You need to talk with your local entities. You need to make sure that they're being just as efficient as possible when it comes to providing services. Many of the services that they provide are mandated by the state also, because constituents have wanted those kinds of services along the way. Roads is an interesting subject, and in this last budget, we did increase the cost for getting a title and for registration to try to get some additional money into funding. Unfortunately, with COVID, people just weren't on the road as much, so our revenue from gas tax has been going down. We did in this last budget and over the several budgets have made some increases, especially this last year with the increase in registration fee, some increases to our local municipalities and counties to try to make sure that they could catch up on maintenance. I've always been in favor of a small increase in gas tax to try to help that as well, because I'm a person that puts a lot of miles on, so I think I should be responsible for paying more than someone who uses their minivan just to go to church and the grocery store once or twice a week. I've also been an advocate of allowing a referendum for local communities if they want to add another half cent of sales tax that would go toward roads.
Thank you. Get this one? This event is co-sponsored by a program at Ripon College. What can you say about the issues college students are facing, and what will you do in office in this regard?
Well, one of the biggest things we probably hear is the cost of education. As I said before, I've always been an advocate for trying to increase the Wisconsin grant. That is financial aid for students depending on their means. I actually served this year on the governor's task force on student debt. There are some particular things that we're advocating for, such as trying to make sure that students fill out their FAFSA to make sure that if they are eligible for financial aid, that they are making sure that they acquire that. Something that we passed in the legislature and we think we should strengthen is to make sure that students are financially literate when they are taking out student loans, to understand what the rates are going to be, what the amortization schedule is going to be when they're paying back those student loans. And so maybe students will make a different decision as to whether they will take a job or not take a job over the summer or during the school year to try to help pay for some of those educational opportunities themselves, and to be realistic when it comes to taking a look at what the investment is in their education and how that will affect them moving forward. So I'm looking forward to what the governor is going to put in his budget regarding that, and hope to work with the governor's office to do the best we can to make college more affordable. Of course, we have over the last couple of terms held UW tuition steady, so that students will have the capability of knowing when they start out what the dollar is going to be when they're finishing up, and they can plan accordingly.
Thank you. Joni?
So one of the big issues that I hear around the state and from a lot of different people that choose to go to, whether it's a tech school or whether it's to the university, four-year university, is the cost of student loans. I remember getting a student loan at 2%. Since then, the banks have had the ability to raise the costs of the interest of these student loans, and that's what hurts them. The students need to be able to get these loans at a low interest, if not zero interest, so that they can go to school and have their choice of where they want to go to school, whether it's a four-year university, whether it's and hopefully it would be in Wisconsin, without doing some type of regulation to stop the interest from increasing. There's going to be more and more students. They'll go out of state to go to school. They may not even choose to go to college at all, and be left in a lower wage job, such as a grocery store or fast food, but something where they do not actually have a career or a chance at making good wage. So.
Okay. You get this next one.
Mm-hmm.
Explain your understanding of systemic racism and institutions of oppression. Do you believe such things exist in the state of Wisconsin, and specifically the 14th? What is your opinion of the Black Lives Matter movement?
I think we definitely have systemic racism in Wisconsin, and if that wasn't made quite obvious in Kenosha, I don't know how else it could be actually shown. Black Lives Matter is a good organization. They've tried to educate people, they try to train people, they try to bring out the different issues that Black and brown people and have actually, lived with over the years. Black and brown people get picked up for possession charges of marijuana much more easily. They get stopped and they end up being put in prison more easily. They end up getting put in in situations where maybe a conflict might occur, and they also tend to live in zip codes that maybe don't have, that are more poverty-stricken, so they have the issues that they're afraid of the cops. And they've been brought up that way to feel that way. And we just don't need that in the state. We need it addressed, and we need it, and in the Senate 14 district, there is people that need to have this addressed. We have it in Adams. You know, people that went to school, that have approached different community organizations talking about the different issues that they faced going to school and how it was not addressed.
Okay, thank you. Joan?
So I think it's obvious that there are some systemic issues going on. We see them around the country. We see them in our own area. I'm looking forward to the work that's going to be done by the Speaker's Task Force that's moving forward with Representative Steinecke and Stubbs as the co-chairs to try to look specifically at some of these disparities. Some of the things I've done in working with early childhood education, with Child Protective Services, we do know that there are some disparity issues when it comes to poverty, trying to reach out to those communities to try to support those families and strengthen them so that they will see more opportunity and more value in positive work. But I haven't walked in their shoes. I have my own view and my own experiences when it comes to those kinds of those matters, and so I'm anxious to hear what my colleagues come forward with as they study these issues, everything from disparity to police training, and bring something forward that we can all agree to.
Thank you. Joan, COVID-19 has changed the way we live and the way we see the future. What role do you believe the state legislature should play in helping businesses and institutions that have been impacted by the virus? And this can include increased testing, the wearing of masks, social distancing, healthcare facility protocols, large public venues, and sports events.
Well, I hope that it hasn't changed our attitude that the future can be positive no matter what we're doing. And of course, we've all learned that we need to wash our hands and not touch our face as we move forward. I think there has been some highlighted some of the better health practices that maybe we were lax in. I think that there will be a time, hopefully in the not too distant future, when we'll look at this just as some of the other difficulties that we've had over the years, whether it's been tuberculosis, whether it's been SARS, avian flu, HIV, all of those things have come around through science. We've been able to find things that will help people get through their illnesses. We've found immunizations that have been impactful when it comes to all of those types of issues in the past. I think the same thing will happen when it comes to this situation. Right now, we do need to help those businesses that have been mostly impacted during this shutdown. We need to make sure that we're moving forward without major shutdowns again, so hopefully people will be careful as they move forward, respectful of people, whether they want to wear masks or not able to wear masks moving forward. And as I said before, just make sure that we're practicing good hygiene, protecting those that are more vulnerable, and making sure that the science will help us get through this and move forward again in the not too distant future.
Thank you. Joni?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. COVID-19 has changed the way we live and the way we see the future. What role do you believe the state legislature should play in helping businesses and institutions that have been impacted by the virus, such as increased testing, the wearing of masks, social distancing, healthcare facility protocols, large public venues, and sports events?
I too hope that we can go forward in a positive way, but we have businesses that, right in Adams, that had to shut down and did not applied for the small business loans and did not get them because the money did not go to them. It went to the bigger businesses. That shouldn't have happened. If they were a small business and they applied for this loan and they were forced to shut down, they should have received the loan over a corporate business. Our communities and hospitals, they need testing. They need PPE, and it should come from our state or country, not from China. And that would provide jobs. There are just so many ways that the state and the federal government could help show support for this issue and still, so that the impact is less negative on their lives. And it also shows a good spot where we could provide health care that isn't connected to employment. And pre-existing conditions and all that would be covered, and because people shouldn't be facing the bills that some of them are facing with this disease.
Okay, thank you. This one's for you. You lead. Recently, Governor Evers called for a special session of the legislature to hear, debate, and vote on 9 separate bills, which would improve police accountability and transparency through standards and training. What will you, as a senator for the 14th District, do to assist passing these and other proposed bills?
Well, first, I agree with the bills. I think the police need the training and the education. I think that when the session was called, the two sides should have come together and they should have had a session rather than just being gavelled in and gavelled out. And it just kind of showed a disrespect for the whole situation that was going on. I would hope that if this was put to a committee, that it would actually get addressed in the committee and move forward out of that committee so that it could be taken care of and that the bills could be passed, and so that the situation that like what happened in Kenosha doesn't have to happen again.
Thank you. Joan?
Well, as I mentioned before, the success of a special session is when the governor and the legislature work on the proposals before the call for the special session. So the task force has agreed to take a look at the bills that the governor has put forward. I'm not aware of what the governor has actually done to reach out to stakeholders, either in the law enforcement community, the Black Lives Matter community, the folks that do our training and standards through our Department of Justice in preparing any of these bills as they have been put forward. So I think that there is something that is going to be done in taking a look at these proposals, that they will go to committees. They will have the opportunity for public input, which is the way that the legislature works on these things, not just the governor gives you a bill and you take it or leave it. It is something that needs to be discussed and thoroughly vetted. Most bills that are introduced never do get to the point of being voted on. So I think this is something that we can continue to work, but We're not working together, which has been indicative of the entire response that the governor has been working with everything regarding the COVID response and not participating with the legislature in how the CARES Act money was going to be used or anything else. And so I hope that maybe this will be a turning point for us to finally start working together.
Okay, Joan, you're going to take this one. What is your position on mail-in or absentee ballots for all elections?
Well, not mail-in ballots. Absentee ballots, absolutely, that individuals can make that choice where they want to go to the polls, if they want to go early for early voting, or if they're unable to go to the polls, request an absentee ballot. I think that is perfectly logical. I don't believe that mailing ballots to people and mailing them back is a reasonable option for individuals. There is questions regarding security of ballots and those types of things moving forward. So we have a very robust system right now in Wisconsin that you can actually register to vote on the day of the election. This is something that isn't done in most states. So I think we have a very huge interest in making sure that our elections are safe and accurate, and making sure that every individual's vote is counted.
Thank you. Joni?
I support easier access to voting. I think that when it comes to the mail-in and the absentee ballots, I support both of them. I don't think there's a lot of fraud that goes on. We have a lot of people that are very vulnerable out there that are homebound, that have a difficult time getting any place to vote, much less going to a computer and requesting an absentee ballot. Some of them are very difficult to even do that. Some of them in nursing homes have a difficult time getting their ballot and getting it actually witnessed. So we need to make this an easier to vote, not more difficult. And we also need to, one of the other things that I support is automatic voter registration. So if people move, their voter registration goes with them, so that, and states that actually have this have seen an increase in the votes. There was one state that had 55,000 more votes put in after they had automatic voter registration implemented.
This is going to be the last question because you've been going at it for more than an hour now.
Oh.
The clock's almost right on the wall. So, Joni, you will start with this last question. Would you agree to a voluntary cap on spending for any future political campaign where you are a candidate? If your opponent agreed to the same limit, please explain your answer.
Yes, I would. I don't think that we need a lot of, thousands and thousands of dollars coming into our elections from out of state. I have a limit of $2,000 that I can accept from anybody, including myself. So I just don't feel that we need all this extra money coming in from God knows where to our elections. It isn't right, and it later on when people are elected, it does affect how they vote.
Okay. Joan?
Well, first of all, being currently an elected official, I would say that it does not affect how you vote. The statutory limit for contributions for individuals is $2,000. That's the same. That's the statutory limit. Having a limit between candidates is all well and good, but that has nothing to do with the amount of money that comes in that supports candidates, pro and con, based on organizations. Organizations that do things on behalf of you or against you, and you have no authority over, nor can you work with organizations to do one thing or another. So I think unfortunately, I think we're beyond the opportunity to have some of these regulations as far as money in politics, because there is so much more money that's in politics beyond what individual candidates can raise or spend on their own.
Thank you. We're going to go into closing remarks, and we will start with Joan and tell the people of Wisconsin State Senate District 14 why voters should vote for you. A minute.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the League of Women Voters doing this and the Ripon College in providing this opportunity to talk to the constituents of the 14th Senate District. As being your state representative in the 41st District for the last 8 terms, I've tried to provide great constituent services to make sure that you are actually getting the answers you need from the state, whether that is something that you're in conflict with them or just need an understanding. That is something that I think is one of our most important jobs. I've listened to the constituents to bring forward legislation on hunting, on fishing, on strengthening our restraining orders with Heather Lawler from Berlin. I've worked on making sure that sexual assault victims have all the best processes possible, and I've been very involved in making sure that child protective services and foster care are supported.
Thank you. Joni.
Okay, I think people need to vote for me because I sincerely want to help with some of the basic issues out there that haven't been addressed, like raising the minimum wage and health care. We need those Medicaid dollars back in this state, and we need nonpartisan redistricting in this state so that the political parties are not deciding where those voting lines draw. Also, I really feel that we need to put funding into alcoholism and drug and mental health services. That this is a very basic issues that used to get funding and no longer do, and it would keep people out of the prisons. It would probably keep our police departments from becoming
You can finish the thought if you
okay, from just being, having situations arise like what happened down in Kenosha.
Okay, thank you both for participating. Remember, the election is Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. For more information on the local League of Women Voters of the Ripon area, please visit our Facebook page and visit the website at Ripon College for more information on the Center for the People and Politics. Thank you both. We can put our masks back on and circulate around the room.
Thank you, Ella.
Thank you.
Thanks.